Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell Haugen. I'm the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we are here to celebrate the recent publication of Enid Osborn's Pedrgosa St, which is now out and now shipping and is very excited to be out in the world. So welcome, Enid. Very excited to have you. We're going to hear from Enid, and then we have a short list of invited readers from Sheila-Na-Gig Online's winter issue, which is also has just come out. So we can check that out. All right, I'm going to let you know a little bit about Enid, and then I'm going to read the little blurb on the back of her book to give you a little taste of what we're in for here. So Enid Osborn is a 45-year resident of Santa Barbara, California, and served as the city's poet laureate in 2017 through 2019. Pedrgosa St is Osborn's second full-length book of poetry, and it takes place in Upper West Side neighborhood of Santa Barbara. Her first book, titled When the Big Wind Comes from Big Yes Press, describes her childhood in southeast New Mexico, where her family raised quarter horses. Her poems appear mainly in West Coast and Southwest journals and anthologies. Her poem, The Place of Loss, was nominated by Askew for a Pushcart Prize. And with Yucca Valley poet Cynthia Anderson, who's also a Sheila-Na-Gig Editions author. Very excited to have you here, Cynthia. She co-edited A Bird Black as the Sun, California Poets on Crows and Ravens, featuring the work of 81 poets. So that is pretty cool. On the back of her book, we get to get a little taste of what's going on here, and Enid's going to give us a much bigger taste in just a second. Between 1997 and 2025, poet Enid Osborn lived in a two-story Italianate Victorian boarding house built circa 1902 in West Side, Santa Barbara, California, in a cul-de-sac abutting the railroad and the freeway. Blending autobiography, magic realism, and fiction, Osborn paints a picture of a charmed, yet Spartan life. Poems focus mainly on the early years of her tenancy, when the house stood amid a crumbling neighborhood in gang territory, an area which gentrified in later years. Sub-themes include trains, insomnia, ghosts, rats, birds, colorful neighbors, surviving cancer, and living long enough in one place to play a bit role in its metamorphosis. So wonderful to see you again, have you here. Enid, take it away for us.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you so much. It's been a dream to work with Haley, and if she puts out a call for submissions, get your book in there. It's a wonderful experience. My book, Pedrgosa St, is about, as already said, a life in a turn-of-the-century house. And I've lived here for nearly 30 years, certainly the most productive period in my writing life. All told, I've lived on the West Side for 45 years. This house, 30 years. So this is my hood. I truly love this house, this old place. I'm going to start with a poem called The Causal Arrow of Time. And I want to read this one because Barbara Sable, who edited the latest winter issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online, chose this one, and it's also in the book. So I'll start with this. It's one of the three foundation poems of Pedrgosa St. The title is a term of quantum physics, being the premise that the cause always precedes its effects and the flow of time is therefore irreversible. And that is all this poem has in common with quantum physics. The poem is more about insomnia, which is a sub-theme of the book as well. This is on page 50, if you have a book. The Causal Arrow of Time. Bedtime asserts a strangeness, the transition from upright to lying down, a diminishment of the guard. When all the house goes to sleep, I begin my battle against sleep and keep it up into the wee hours when neck gives like warm tallow and head nods into deep space. Or if standing, one knee gives way and I may fall like a length of timber. Let's talk about things that happen while one is asleep. The clever rat has its way. A ghost stands in the hall. Shoes walk themselves across the tired carpet or crawl deeper under the bed. Scraps of paper meant to remind me fall from their postings and lodge behind books that are busy reading themselves aloud. My mother, disruption, visits from her coma to knock over a jar of honey. A West Side banger whistles one note beneath the window. A spigot drips into a cup that overflows, and Master sits at the foot of my bed to quietly chide me. He and John talk about their paintings. I strain to hear their conversation over loud orchestral music, knowing all the while that the causal arrow of time moves in one direction. The hours are fleeting, unwatched, wasted. At daybreak, I open to terrible dread and remain skeptical well into morning. The world I have just left more loved than this one. Until I rise and wash, until I strike a blue flame beneath the glass kettle, until the sky shows its shy light, and I begin again to forget, and slowly embrace this world, the one with closets of wool and bells of silver. Thank you. Certain characters and themes echo through this collection. In that first poem, we heard about insomnia, a ghost, a rat, a painter named John, and animated shoes, all of which we hear more about in subsequent poems. This is titled Floating Shoes. It's on page 52. The thudding sound I sometimes heard upon waking was not the ghost, though this does not rule out the presence of the ghost. Nor was it the rat, nor was it my downstairs neighbor preparing for bed after working the night shift. Nor was it the heavy crow landing on my roof. In fact, it was my two shoes floating beside the bed, held aloft by my dream state, that came unsuspended and hit the floor, thump thump, as I began to wake. The volume of the thuds must have depended on the height of the shoes in air. I sometimes heard them but fell back into a dream, their touchdown then doubted or forgotten at second waking. But I did wonder why my shoes were not lying side by side as I had left them. How careless. Apologies to the ghost if I am telling this wrong. Apologies to my neighbor. Apologies to the rat. The difference between a rat and a ghost. You are comfortable with the pops and sighs of the old house, 100 years and counting. Animals make a different sound inside the walls than droll house spirits do. You think you hear intention. Stealth, perhaps. It brings your chi right to the surface. Not the sound a bodiless soul makes to say hello, or to offer some dry and timely comment on what you were just thinking. You don't have to take my word for it, says the ghost, laissez-faire as all get out. The intruder, on the other hand, is anything but ambivalent. and doesn't give a rat's ass what you think. He is alive and wants to stay that way. He climbs up the ancient skeleton of abandoned plumbing inside the wall, toward a dim crescent of light and the smell of neglect, punches the powdery caulking with one hand and squeezes through into the lower cupboard, the one you never clean so as not to stir memories. He is now officially trespassing, a noble rat vocation, and likes what he smells. He possibly likes your kitchen more than you do. The spaces you fail to inhabit are neon signs written in rat. So as the intro said, the Pedrgosa house is situated in a cul-de-sac abutting the railroad. There's a group of little poems, little poetic vignettes titled Cul-de-sac Stories, which is the second poem that the book kind of stands on. And these were written about my first years living in this house. During the time I have lived here, I'm here now in that house. The neighborhood has gradually calmed down, but it has also lost some of its color. 1. The freight creaks to a slow amble. A screen door slams at the last house. A man jumps the chain links, hits the side of a rusted boxcar, and swings butt first through the half-open door. Sometimes the freight stops for 20 minutes, an hour, giving Amtrak the right-of-way. The woman who paints La Virgen comes down from Mission Bridge and picks out a green boxcar. She unpacks her stencil. Neighbors returning from market pause beside the tracks to watch La Virgen take form. Children whisper. No one talks aloud. Paint dries on sun-warmed metal. As the train creaks and begins to roll, the painter walks alongside, putting up the last stars. 2. El Portero rakes the asphalt clean. Not just the street in front of his house, but the whole round of the cul-de-sac. Half an hour of scratching each morning we take for granted like mission bells. The points on his rake are worn to nubs. The railroad builds a fence at the base of the cul-de-sac to keep drug runners from hopping the trains. His side of the fence is clean. On the other side, trash crawls up the chain links. One of the things I love about my neighborhood is that it's multicultural and multi-generational. I've gotten to know neighbors from Mexico, China, Guatemala, Korea, East Africa, and England, for starters. There are ancient people observing old world customs, such as the man who rakes each day. And there are always children's voices around me, lots of beautiful families. In fact, it was a neighbor child across the way who first told me about the ghost on my balcony. And then there are the animals. On the cover of my book, you see a photo of a chow chow, and that is lion dog. Let's see if you can, I don't know if you can see this. There's a dog over here. Lion dog. This is one of the cul-de-sac stories. Lion dog makes his rounds at a jaunty tick, swinging his broad head down on every plug and post. He does not growl at strangers or unfurl his tight plume to greet a neighbor. He ignores cats and avoids that half-chow bitch at the last house. They had a thing. That's all it was. Mornings and evenings he makes his rounds. Afternoons he lies on the warm asphalt in front of his house like a perfect sphinx. Nothing raises his hairs except the Harleys. Lion Dog cringes away from the sound of glass packs as El Tigre pulls up across the street and swipes the kickstand. Children pour out of the house, crying, "Daddy, Daddy!" To settle a dispute, he smacks all three. I could throw in a few more vignettes if there's time later, but now I will read you the third foundation poem. I mentioned earlier that one of the sub-themes of the book is insomnia, or being awake and solitary in the wee hours, which is not necessarily a bad thing for a writer. Here is another of the foundation poems placed near the end of the book. My hope is that it paints a unique picture of the West Side in the very early hours of the morning. Awake on the West Side. At 3 a.m., a lamp burns in the cul-de-sac, and in the quiet, a single voice may be heard. The rude downshift of a semi, the hiss of a rusted owl in the palm, the scratch of a pen on dry paper. At 4, a train wails at the station 2 miles away. The sound builds in the night, 4 engines straining with a full load behind. A searing white light sweeps the shallow canyon between road bank and houses. Gaining speed, the train barrels past Pedrgosa, squeals, hisses, slams the track, and lumbers over Mission Bridge. The old Vic, jitterbugs, empty chairs walk, china sings atop the shelves. A crack in the wall grows wider. This house, a bare 30 yards from the tracks, knows much about trains. At 5 o'clock, the asphalt lies cool on Mitchell-Torrena Bridge. Golden lamps cast fixed shadows. No rolling cars to Xerox. No can pickers. No workers on bikes. No women on their way to market. No stray dogs. Only the little bats whose shadows flit like doubts one may choose to ignore. Just before the street lamps extinguish, those bigger doubts, the crows, begin their journey across the sky. At first, they speak little and pass for black. But one green crow, a parrot, flies among and shrilly mimics the crow's speech. Several more are not strictly black, but descendants of the West Side white crow, random streaks and patches of white on their wings, as if, on an errand of mischief, they flew beneath a rain of paint. Blue gum eucalyptus, night jasmine, pittosporum mingle their oils with a mist of fish and tar. The boys who vault the chain link fence are not West Side locals. Just boys in bleached t-shirts who jostle for position as they wind their way home along the tracks. The old woman stands at her stove heating coffee. Her heavy braid falls to her waist. A boy comes in, closes the door softly. ¿A dónde fuiste? ¿Qué hiciste? I'm tired, abuelita, he says. Déjame. And he falls asleep in his clothes, resting on his belly, once again the child she knows. As the freeway finds its sure and even tides, the boy dreams. The poet carefully presses her pages, throws off the afghan, shuffles to the kitchenette. lights a blue flame under the pot, greets the mountain that stands in her window. And the morning becomes a sink of dishes, a pair of shoes, the daily news, and a clock on the wall that tells her when it's time to catch the 101. Thank you. I'll close with another shoe poem from the West Side, and I want to thank you for being so wonderful. And it's so good to see friends here and hopefully new friends. And I'm really looking forward to hearing people read from the journal, the winter issue that's coming up next. Lost Shoe. This poem is on page 73. I wondered all day about a lost shoe I saw in the middle lane, and a strange young man came to my door with a tie on and a black book. And because the shoe was a black shoe and this young man at my door looked so unsure, I dreamt he lost the shoe and he still went door to door. His foot touched the ground many times and then he was better. There's a pair of chucks slung by their laces over a power line on San Andres. They fill up with water when it rains and squirt from the rivets like those statues of Mary that cry real tears. One day the shoestrings will rot. I drive under them each morning and pray for them to fall on me and kick my car. If you lost a shoe, it might hurt you. If your brother got it in a scuffle and threw it out the car window just as you were calling him shithead, or if you had a sore foot shaped like a fish or an anvil, it might hurt. What if the shoe was too big, or it broke and just fell off like that teeny white plastic Mary Jane I saw in the leaves? I swear that shoe followed me all over the West Side. What if she needed to run? There's glass everywhere. Be careful.
Thank you so much, Enid. And you really just take us into the whole atmosphere of the neighborhood and your world there. It's just so rich and wonderful and great to hear these aloud. So thank you so much. So we have been enjoying Enid Osborn's Pedrgosa St, now available from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. So I hope you've enjoyed that little snippet of them. It's really, really great. Now we are going to be, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you again. That was really fun.
Yeah, great to have you here. It's wonderful. We're going to be changing gears now, and we have a few readers from our winter issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online, and Juan Pablo Mobili is going to start us off. So go ahead, Juan.
I was saying thank you, Haley. Thank you, Enid, for your poems and the world you share with us through it. Okay, so these poems, I think all I would say about them is it's poems that in the present has me think of the past, and when I look at the past, doesn't look that different than the present. Okay, that's all I would say. I don't want to be too mysterious. So this is a poem that is in this issue, and thank you, Haley, for publishing it. Some poems really long for a precise, authentic home, and Sheila-Na-Gig was for this. Meeting by chance. Let's imagine we strike up a conversation at a party. At the home of an old friend, years after both of us chose to live abroad, having lost part of our hearts to the unthinkable cruelties that our government unleashed. Should we tell each other that we write poems? confess that they saved us, although the grief will never end, that we possibly wear the same scar. And this is a poem that was also published recently, so I thought, let me go with the stuff that is out now. It's called Migrando, which means migrating, and speaks of the same past and present for me. And it says, when I travel, I touch my passport often, as if it was a talisman or the foot of a rabbit that tells me you are still you. And I stand in line praying to be welcome wherever I may be. Sometimes I touch one of my poems and my mother stops singing for her friends, puts down her top hat, and wonders whether I'm all right. I look at her as if she was a passport picture that only shows what a stranger should see. I carry a suitcase with more shirts than I will wear, a notebook hoping to write enough to go on breathing, a comb I barely need anymore, the crumpled note on which I scribbled the address where I will stay, and the rabbit foot. Thank you.
I'm Ace Boggess. I'm a poet and ex-con from Charleston, West Virginia. I write a lot of poetry about my life in prison. And it occurred to me a little while back that I had been out for twice as long as I was in. So I thought, well, I should start writing poems about being a free man. And I wrote poems like this. Free man watches yellow jackets enter a cavern in concrete where the patio is pulled away, patient for their turns like 747s called to runways. Must have a nest, he thinks, imagining a secret base used by villains in comic books. There are free wasps in a free world, glowing golden rod and graceful, bound only by programming in their insect brains. The free man, too, is free to slaughter them en masse. Can't figure out a way without pouring gasoline into the hole and burning his house to the ground. My new book came out last week, right before Thanksgiving. It's called Tell Us How to Live. And it's something I've been doing for about 20 years, writing poems based on questions that people ask or that I pull off of other poems or cereal boxes, billboards. And this is a collection full of them. This is a question from John Van Kirk's novel Song for Chance. If I came in here shot, would you say I had a lead problem? I'd say you had an America problem. Wrong place, wrong situation. I'd say you could use a good drug problem or never-ending cup of whiskey, good stuff first, cheapest ever after. I'd say you've sprung a leak, might need a cork or rubber cement. I'd say I can't stand the sight of blood, the sight of blood, the sighted blood. I'd say, have a seat, friend, while we wait for the wound to pass. As if any of our pretty eruptions leave the petty party memory is. Don't know bullet holes, but I have punctured and been jabbed. I've walked face first into a fist. Who hasn't had his nostril opened like a box wine tap? I purpled, yellowed in the healing. tasted rust mouth or the salty underlip. Don't come in here shot if you can help it. If you can't, I'd say you had a weakness where stability should be, especially at your age, even at mine. I'd say you had an insurance problem. I'd offer to pick up the check, but it's not my turn. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alison Hicks, and I'm going to start with reading the poem that is in the latest edition of Sheila-Na-Gig. It also appears in my book Homing that came out just very close to a year ago, a little under a year ago. And this was really kind of fun because it was one of the poems that hadn't been picked up. And so I was glad to have it appear in a journal. So I thank you, Haley, for that. And it's part of a sequence that is the title sequence, Homing, and this is the third poem in the sequence. But you don't have to know the other poems to follow it. 3, 2 tones against brick. Speaking of shoes. Baby shoe, white and blue, on a brick sidewalk. Upright, as if waiting for a foot to come along, insert itself into it. Leather, expensive, the kind of shoe a parent might retrace steps to find, the kind my son would have kicked off. I was on my way to visit a friend whose husband had died, my small foot too big. A woman from grad school told me she would find discarded arms and legs of dolls in streets and gutters. They're everywhere you look. They're everywhere once you start looking for them, she said. Discarded baby shoe, the closest I have come. Like everyone, I am bewildered by time. I do not seek to go back. Whatever the age, the heart is held in a nest of pain, a different pain for each age. Through a tunnel on a towpath along a canal, I once hiked long enough so that in the middle no light came in from either side. Nothing for it but to keep walking. My friend ahead of me, I can make out her back in the dark. I'm afraid to reach the place she is passing. I place a hand on the damp bricks that make up the arch above me. I worry for myself, for all of us, how we will sleep. And the next one I'm going to read is actually from I sort of stumbled into writing this series that's turning into kind of a long series, maybe a kind of a narrative series about a group of early humans that they live together and then they get split by a natural disaster. And this poem tells a little bit about that. It's called The Translators. 4 we were, girl and boy each from mountain and shore. The elders showed at our fires. We had not known many winters. We stared, clutching our mothers. Ungripping us, they let us out from our families, friends, to the halfway point on the mountain, the place permitted to both mountain and shore. We were given names, Sama, Una, Obian, Clar. The man and woman from mountain spoke shore tongue with an accent. They unrolled sheets with marks on them. Old tongue, we were told. We sure children giggled, stopped when they admonished we were to speak old tongue, to be its guardians. When our peoples came with business or dispute, we were to translate into old tongue, in which we would confer, making use of wisdom we would attain through its study, giving judgment in tongue folk would understand. The elders bent toward us, old tongue, all that was left of the wholeness, the time before the wave, before some moved up the mountain, before some came down to bury the dead, could no longer ascend and became shore. We would be allowed to speak mountain tongue and shore tongue at our mother's visits once a moon. We despaired. No more siblings' ribbings, mother's songs, no more low hum of fathers as we fell into sleep, no sound of waves, no smell of pines in sun at mountain top. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Burt. I live in California. Believe it or not, it's actually colder here than it should be. The rest of you are freezing out east and in the Midwest. But my first poem is from a man named Leo. It's in the winter edition. It's called Offering. I worked 7 years at County Mental Health. He was homeless, been a cabinet maker, and become a drug addict. But this is about an occurrence with him. Offering. Look at my psalms, he misspoke, holding his upturned hands like blossoms toward my eyes. And flashes of his work with wood appeared. Honey gold of the finish, the plane smoothing the grain, the sandpaper that softened both a corner and his fingers and removed a portion of his identity and gave it like a gift to the wood. Thumbs crippled, his palms extended in lament, worship, beseeching, triumph. My second poem is actually about sounds the earth makes, but it rolls in my brother who passed a couple of years ago. And he comes up more frequently as I get older, even though he's not with us anymore. It's called Stones Rise. Skimming the edge of an esker, gravel crunched by boots, immature red polyps on bushes, and white cranberries popped up off to the sides, cedars dead or dying. I stopped to catch a breath on the scoured bowl of the glacier near the hilly farms toward the Horican Marsh, and the drumlin ponds like brimming spoons below. I can't hear a thing except the earth itself, a hum and moan like the sound my large brother made when he rolled over in his sleep. There is no dead silence. Even before our time, ice gathered and cracked. Rivers ran down crevasses and trickled down those eskers like a flume to point south. Water and wind effaced glacial slabs into till. Sand subverted. Rocks rose. Even now, without the growl of a car in the distance or the echo of a voice, sand and gravel ping, shift. A pebble falls, another. Inert ground yet grinds. Even Brother Paul, dead, shifts in my chest, jostled, rises like a stone in my throat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Haley and Barbara.
Hello, I'm Marianne Worthington, and I live in southeastern Kentucky, and I'm so glad to be here tonight. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Haley, for publishing the first poem I want to read tonight. It's called Leaving, and it's a palindrome. The road toward the heart of town curves sharp as a knife. The guardrails pin you in like grief, that vile thief. You had almost forgotten about sadness, passing it behind you. As you head away from home, the road softens. You depart, bound for the unknown, the burn of your tires, just another mark on the freeway. Just another mark on the freeway, the burn of your tires, bound for the unknown. The road softens as you depart, as you head away from home. About sadness, passing it behind you, you had almost forgotten that vile thief, pinning you in, the guardrails like grief, like a knife, curved sharp, like the road toward the heart of town. And the second poem I want to read is a new poem, and it's about sounds I don't hear anymore that I used to hear in my youth. It's called The Dwindling. Before the field became a building, before I lost my sense of wonder, the lanky field grass whistled to me. My father heard the grasslands trilling and imitated the call I heard that summer. It's a bird, he said, a quail that calls its own name. Bob White, Bob, Bob White, Bob White. The woods we learned by following boys who knew the shortcuts from backyards yawning open into awnings of shade and a coolness that splashed our faces. Leaf litter cackled under our feet. Under the trees we sleuthed until we surfaced, surprised by how we arrived behind the rec center or at the store at the foot of the ridge. After dark, we heard the nightjar shrilling the double letters of its name, whippoorwill, whippoorwill, whippoorwill. My father might sing out a remembrance in his high voice, calling back through the dark. She is mine, and the thought of her grows sweeter when it's time for the whippoorwill to sing. Sometimes I dream he sings yet. He knew so many songs. I want to dream the calls of the quail and the nightjar, for only in sleep can I hear their music, absent, like my father's singing voice, spent as the field and the woods. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rose Mary Boehm, and I'm reading you first the recent poem published by Sheila-Na-Gig. Thank you, Haley. I live in Lima, Peru, and we do have an Amazon passing through. Delirium in the Amazon Delta. I feel like a huge old tree suddenly felled by an unexpected event. I hear the word dengue become the rushes of a movie, break bone. By the tall strangler fig, a man carefully brushes his big yellow teeth, white foam emerging from his nostrils. A black creature in a tux shoots its cuffs, roots drill into wet, loamy earth. Dump is rising, my skin is ice. Giant mushrooms unfold all over my body with soft kisses. Bone breaker. A dog-eared gossip mag is reading me. Rita Hayworth suffered from halitosis. Clark Gable took out his teeth when he didn't like his co-star. A tone-deaf friend plays the violin on the sideboard in the music teacher's house. It's been raining steadily. Water spatters against my fever eyes, which are still being shaped by the glassblower. And the other one, a short one, is from an older collection of mine, which was published in Ireland and was called The Rain Girl. This is the title poem. A marriage. The rain girl lives in her dreams and in a house without a roof, where mushrooms push through the carpet and a beehive is forcing its tumorous growth through the piano strings. As weightless as a new soul, she stares at him in distress. And why would she remember lightness now? Thank you.
Thank you for closing us up there, Rose, and to all of our invited mic readers tonight, and to Barbara Sable, our associate editor, who was our curator for our gigantic winter issue, about 70 poets in that big one, including a number of our Sheila-Na-Gig Editions book authors too. So check it out. It'll keep you cozy through the winter evenings here. And many thanks to Enid Osborn. We're celebrating Pedrgosa St, which is now shipping from Sheila-Na-Gig. Thank you, everybody. And you can find us at Sheila-Na-Gig blog.com, where you can find our issues and our authors' books. Thanks for coming.